And good afternoon and welcome to the Howie Silbiger Show here on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Show Montreal. Heard around the world on the True Talk Radio Network. TrueTalkRadio.com is the official site of the Howie Silbiger Show, and I invite you to visit the site. Oh yes, visit the site, read the blogs, be part of the True Talk Radio experience. And of course it's brought to you by Les Entreprises Premco for all your printing needs. Les Entreprises Premco, 514-482-9711. It's 514-482-9711, and the Montreal Jewish News, www.montrealjewishnews.com. Coming up a little later on in the show, just after 7 o'clock, we'll be joined by Rabbi Mordechai Zeitz. He was the rabbi at the Beth Tikva congregation in Dollar des Armeaux for, just about 50 years, just a little under 50 years. He'll be joining us to talk about how life has changed in the last 50 years and what his plans for retirement are. So he'll be here a little after 7 o'clock. Daniel Inayatzadeh is here. He'll be in studio with me. And Itai Azrat is coming, and Dominic is working the board, and maybe Tzvi will drop in a little later on, and who knows who else will drop in. This is the beauty of the Howie Silbiger Show. It's always someone new coming here. It's always someone new joining us. And I am here, and of course you could be on the phones by dialing 514-738-4100 extension 200. That's 514-738-4100 extension 200. You can text me. I know we don't push the text too often, but you can text me at 438-800-6545. That's 438-800-6545. You can send me an email, howie@truetalkradio.com. And I think there's enough ways to contact us. If you want to contact us, you got plenty of ways to do it. So feel free to avail yourselves to any of the ways that we have for you to contact us here on the show. Now, I was thinking all week, and this is what happens. I do a show, and then I have a week. And the full week is filled with people coming up to me and telling me either they loved the show, or they hated the show, or I'm the worst person in the world, or I deserve to die, or stuff like that, right? So the whole week goes by, and I hear from different people who listen to the show, and people who are really upset or really happy about topics I've done on the show. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been telling you about this Size Doesn't Matter campaign, sponsored by our federation. Yes, the federation that you donate money to. I do not, but I'm sure lots of you do. The Size Doesn't Matter campaign, which decided to sexualize the promotion of Israel by producing what essentially is softcore pornography. So I told you about the latest video, promoting Tel Aviv as a place where you could go to have a threesome in a shower. And I told you about the videos that they produced beforehand. One about Jerusalem, where a woman went bed hopping and was comparing men's genitalia. I told you about this, and these are the videos that were created by Size Doesn't Matter, the campaign. Now, nobody knew originally who Size Doesn't Matter was affiliated with, and now finally, it's come out that Size Doesn't Matter is affiliated with the Center for Jewish and Israel Advocacy, or Israel and Jewish Advocacy, CIJA, which is the division of Federation CIJA that took over from Canadian Jewish Congress and Canada Israel Committee. That's where their funding's coming from. That's the segment of Federation that is responsible for this campaign and for everything else. And I also told you last week, for those of you who didn't hear the show last week, I'm just recapping a little bit. I told you last week also that the director of CIJA in Toronto, in response to B'nai B'rith Canada, said that young people view Israel as traditional. We're fighting that viewpoint. We're fighting that tradition. And I asked a question last week, that if you're fighting Israel's tradition, the tradition of Israel being a Jewish country, if you're fighting the tradition in Israel, then what's the point of advocating for Israel? How could you be an Israel advocate and say, all right, I'm an Israel advocate, I believe Israel should be a state for the Jewish people and it's a Jewish state, but we're fighting against the Jewish tradition. It doesn't make sense. It's totally illogical. Now, I'm extremely disappointed, ladies and gentlemen. And why am I disappointed? I'm not disappointed in B'nai B'rith. I'm actually very proud that B'nai B'rith is standing up and actually fighting this and pointing out the hypocrisy and the absolute disgustingness of this campaign, and pointing out that Federation is doing nothing to stop their agency from performing these vile acts against our Jewish community. So I commend B'nai B'rith, and I don't often do this on the show. I commend B'nai B'rith for the actions they've taken in this particular case. But I'm awfully disappointed. I'm disappointed in our pulpit rabbis, the rabbis who claim to be Jewish leaders, the rabbis who claim to stand up for Judaism, the rabbis who get up and pontificate off their pulpits every week and urge us to get closer to God and get closer to Yiddishkeit and get closer to Judaism when during the week, when they're not pontificating off their pulpits, during the week, they're volunteering their times to organizations like CIJA and to help promote Federation's brand of advocacy and Federation's brand of secular pluralism. Our pulpit rabbis are rabbis of our religious Jewish organizations. Now let me tell you about a story. Well, it wasn't even a story. A conversation I had with one of the rabbis, one of our pulpit rabbis, just a couple of weeks ago. Now this rabbi told me, he says, "Hey Howie," he says, "I listened to your show and you are insane." And I said to him, "Why am I insane?" He says, "Because you are promoting a return to Judaism. You're promoting a connection between Jews and God and Jews and the Torah, and you're putting yourself out." He says, "You're putting yourself out, and you're telling people that this is what you believe in. This is what we should all believe in. That in order to be Jewish, you have to believe in Torah and God, and you have to go to synagogue and do the Jewish rituals, and partake in Judaism in order to be Jewish. And Judaism and Jewish people should be married. There should be some sort of connection between the religion and the people." And he says that I think that's great. And this is an Orthodox rabbi in one of the Orthodox shuls. I'm not going to tell you which one because I don't want to embarrass the guy. But it is a Orthodox rabbi in one of the Orthodox shuls. So this is what's going on. He tells me, if you look around the shuls, you don't see kids. You don't see young people in the shuls, especially in the Ashkenazi Orthodox shuls. You see very few kids. All you see is old people. He says, and old people aren't the future. You can't get young people into the synagogues, he says to me. There is no way for you to encourage young people to go to synagogue. There's no way for you to encourage young people to like synagogue and to like the religion and to go and to be part of it. And I looked at him and I said, "Really? Is that really the case, that we can't get young people to come to synagogue?" He says, "You can put on as many youth programs as you want. You could do whatever you want. Young people are not going to go to synagogue." I said to him, "It's funny though, that when you look at a Sephardic synagogue, they're filled with young people. When you look at an Ashkenazi synagogue, not so much." I find that really funny that somehow the Sephardic community here in Montreal, and I'm only talking about Montreal because I live here, and this is the community I talk about. I said, I find it extremely amazing that the Sephardic rabbis here in Montreal have somehow managed to attract, and their synagogues have somehow managed to attract young families with young children to come to the synagogue. I've been to many Sephardic synagogues here in the city, and you can see the obvious difference between an Ashkenazi synagogue and a Sephardi synagogue when you walk into the door. It's obvious. Now, maybe not every Sephardic synagogue is the same, but the ones that I go to where they're young families, it's unbelievable how many kids go with their parents to the synagogue on a Saturday morning. Where in the Ashkenazi community, not so much. I said to him, "So you're telling me that the Sephardic community could attract young people to go to the synagogue? The Ashkenazi community can't." You know what his answer was? And it's the most shocking answer I've had from any rabbi when I've had the discussion with quite a few of them. His answer to me was, "Well, Howie," he says, "the Sephardim have a tradition of being close to religion. They have a tradition of being traditional. The Ashkenazi community does not. And there's nothing we could do to change it." And this is where the sad part is. There's nothing we could do to change it. If that is the attitude of our public rabbis, if that's the attitude of our leaders, there's no surprise that our federation has no problem going out and sacralizing the community and saying religion isn't important. We're fighting against tradition. There's no issue there. The rabbis, shocking. I found it shocking, but it's not really shocking when you think about the attitude. It's not really all that shocking that the rabbis haven't said a word. There has been a word from the Board of Montreal Rabbis or the Rabbinical Council of Canada. Nobody has said a word about Federation admitting, a guy working for Federation who's in charge of the campaign admitting they are fighting Jewish tradition. And our Jewish religious pulpit rabbis have remained silent. But it's not really shocking, is it now? They remained silent when the Y was opening on Shabbos. They remained silent when the schools were being merged. They were trying to merge our schools and take religion out of the schools. They remained silent throughout the entire Bialik debacle last year, when the religion was being pulled out of the school. So I'm not really shocked that our pulpit rabbis haven't said much. But do we consider them Jewish leaders then? Could we consider them Jewish leaders? Could we consider our pulpit rabbis the leaders of our community when they don't give a darn about what happens in the community? That's the question I have. And nobody can answer that question for me, and I say no. I say no, they can't be considered Jewish leaders. As much as they want to be Jewish leaders, as much as they pretend to be Jewish leaders, as much as they're paid to be Jewish leaders, Jewish leaders must lead. We learned this in the Parsha just 2 weeks ago, that Jewish leaders must put themselves out, they must lead. Regardless if it's a popular opinion, if it's an unpopular opinion, if it's right for the people, they must stand up and fight for the people. If it's right, and they must fight for the connection of the Jewish people to the Torah. Our leaders have failed us. Our rabbis have failed us. Now, of course, we can't place the whole blame on the rabbis, although a majority of the blame can be placed on their shoulders. We can't place the full blame on the rabbis' shoulders, because their congregations, the people who are paying them to be our Jewish leaders, the people who are employing them, haven't pushed them to do anything either. And so, you're making a big salary. Most of the rabbis in our major shuls are making huge salaries. And they're making a big salary. And you're sitting in your plush seat. And your board of directors is happy that you give a good speech on the show this morning. You give 1 or 2 shiurim a week. They're very happy. You go and visit some of the poor, some of the sick people. You've done your job. They're very happy. And they don't push you to make the community better. And so when the rabbis don't get involved in making the community better, when the rabbis sit on their laurels and collect their paychecks and don't care about what's going on outside the 4 walls of their synagogues, we end up in a situation where we are now. A situation where our major Jewish advocacy group, the one that speaks to the government on behalf of all of us, could come out publicly and say, we are fighting against Jewish tradition in the state of Israel. And then, only then, do we hear silence from everybody. I am disappointed in you, I am disappointed in your rabbis, I am disappointed in the entire community, that nobody has come up to fight and say tradition is important when it comes to Israel. Tradition is important when it comes to Judaism. Tradition is important when it comes to community. Haven't heard anyone besides myself say this. And this is really sad. 514-738-4100 extension 200. That's 514-738-4100 extension 200. Give me a call. I want to know what you think. Do you agree with me that our pulpit rabbis have let us down? That this community is in serious, dire trouble now because our rabbis have abandoned us? All they're interested in is collecting their paychecks. What happens outside the 4 walls of their synagogues is really irrelevant to them. And I'm talking mostly about the West End rabbis, the ones who make the big salaries in the big synagogues. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? 514-738-4100 extension 200. I'm Howie Silbiger. It's the Howie Silbiger Show on 1650 AM CJRS Radio Show Montreal. We're heard around the world on the True Talk Radio Network. TrueTalkRadio.com is the official site of the Howie Silbiger Show. Like us on Facebook. Go to Facebook and click on the search bar. Find the Howie Silbiger Show and just click like. Just do it. All right, we'll be back right after this.
We got 1 like this week.
Yeah, I noticed that.